Hello and welcome to another installment of the Morning Brew live on NTN, coming to you from the GIS studios, DGIF. It's Friday, the 11th of September 2020. And of course, we got word that the Zouks didn't make it as winners of the CPL at the finals, but we'd like to congratulate all of them for putting their best foot forward. And they were really the underdogs going into this competition. And we'd like to say kudos to them. And I know that something is being planned for their return. So I await that. In the news for today, especially with this 24-hour news cycle, we have an update on the latest COVID-19 patient, the 27-year-old United States national. We have an update on him coming from the CMO, Dr. Sharon Belmar George. We also have a report on a World Suicide Awareness Prevention Day, and that is coming up later on in the broadcast. And of course, we started last week, and we're continuing this week to feature the artists and the work that is ongoing at the CDF as they showcase the National Arts Festival Outreach. So we have another feature poet joining us this morning, as well as the lady at the top, Miss Drenia Frederick, sitting down with us and talking to us about the production that is Outreach this year. We know it is being held and shown in virtual format. And since Sunday, everybody has been blown away by the production quality. I'm not sure if Jeff Bezos is backing them, but we will be hearing from her about how they've been able to pull off this wonderful production and also what they have in store in the next few months. We know the outreach will be running for about 8 months. So stay tuned for that. We have the news and the special interview coming up this morning. Stay with us.
She's been watching, waiting, wondering when the sands of time will give way to a tide of change, and for yesterday and today to become a new tomorrow, for a time when her sun can kiss the cheeks of your loved one and her stars can twinkle in her honeymoon skies, when her earthly embrace will reassure and calm your soul, and her unique view can change your whole perspective. Proudly, she has risen to meet new challenges and to provide safe harbor to all who reach her shores. For her hopes and dreams still stand shoulder to shoulder, a precious reminder of experiences yet to come. So, wherever your moments and memories take you, let her sense of adventure set you free. She is Saint Lucia. Let her inspire you.
Thank you so much for staying attuned to the Morning Brew. If you're watching us on air or online, you're on the go, you can always pull out your phone. You could watch us on the Facebook Live, Government of St. Lucia. Also, our YouTube channel is also carrying the live as well. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. If you can, you will always know when we post new content. We have new content airing all throughout the day coming from the Government of St. Lucia, letting you know what's happening, keeping you abreast. If you're watching from the diaspora, you're St. Lucian from the diaspora, you're a well-wisher, you're a non-national, but you've just been watching on as we've been making great strides in terms of our COVID-19 management. We continue with this morning with the news. We have an update on St. Lucia's latest COVID-19 patient. It is not a St. Lucia national. The 27-year-old male visitor who arrived in St. Lucia on a Sunday, September 6th, 2020, and was retested for COVID-19 in St. Lucia has so far departed the island. On Wednesday evening it was, September 9th, 2020. The visitor was repatriated to the United States via private airline. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sharon Belmar-George says the Ministry of Health is continuing work on the case. Nonetheless, Dr. Belmar-George says investigations and contact tracing by the health team at the hotel on Wednesday, September 9th, has indicated that the transmission risk is low thus far. We go to our first clip for the morning. Take a look.
The adherence by the hotel management and staff to the recommended protocols has resulted in low exposure during the limited period of his stay. Some of the measures in place which assisted in the early identification and management of the case included the following: retesting at the airport for all questionable test results received, early identification and isolation of visitors with pending tests or positive tests, the adherence with hotel protocols at all times, exhaustive contact tracing and testing by all possible contacts. The Ministry of Health and Wellness will continue contact tracing today to ensure that all other contacts are screened and tested when necessary. We continue working closely with the hotel's management to ensure that all measures are in place for disinfection and sanitization to reduce transmission to hotel workers and guests. More detailed information will be provided to the public as we progress with contact tracing, testing, and investigations. The public is advised that protocols are still in place, and these include the use of face masks in public and maintaining safe physical distance from others.
That was Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sharon Belmar-George just giving us an update on the latest confirmed case, patient number 27 here on island, having been repatriated earlier this week. In other COVID-related news, we have an update from the St. Lucia Fire Service. They have informed that as a result of the continued threat of the virus, all non-essential visits to the fire stations are suspended until further notice due to the hazardous nature of the activities being carried out at fire stations, combined with fire officers being the first responders to confirmed and suspected cases and calls related to COVID-19. The department is endeavoring to limit the possible risks of transmission between the public and officers and vice versa. Effective immediately, no vending is allowed on the premises of the fire stations, nor non-work related visitations or tours of fire appliances, equipment, or station compounds. Persons who walk into a fire station to request emergency medical assistance or to report an emergency should go directly to the control room window to make such a report. A face mask covering for both the nose and the mouth, as we've been advocating for and harping on over and over, must be worn when you're going to the fire station. Persons who come in to transact business in the administrative and fire prevention departments of the fire service are also required to wear a face mask covering both the nose and the mouth. Everyone will be subjected to a temperature check before entry into the building, as well as mandatory hand sanitization. Automatic sanitization dispensers are strategically placed within the buildings for ease of access and use. So please take note of that. We continue, meantime, in celebration of International Literacy Day, and as a culminating event of the OECS USAID Early Learners Program, the OECS Commission, in partnership with the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, hosted a webinar to showcase the achievements of the ELP. And we so far heard the Chief Education Officer as well as Dr. Didicus Jules, Director General at the OECS, speak very highly of this latest initiative. Take a look. We have a report from Anicia Antoine.
The United States Agency for International Development, USAID, and the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, partnered to host a webinar to showcase the achievements of the Early Learners Program under the theme, The Future of Reading in the OECS. The Early Learners Program, ELP, addresses the essential aspects of policy and practice in order to improve the reading levels of all learners at the early primary levels, grade K to grade 3. The webinar described the impact of the ELP on early grade readers' performance and shared best practices throughout the OECS. Lisa Sagerson-Terrence, a reading specialist of the OECS USAID Early Learners Program, highlighted the importance of implementing a system which is able to identify the needs of students and provide the necessary support.
Every education system should have a comprehensive assessment program, and a program that naturally captures diagnostic assessment on our learners. And not just having the program, which has all types of assessment tools, but making sure that we capture that information very early, from the pre-K years, from the early childhood years. It is important to know what our children are coming in with, and not just information related to their academics and so forth, but behavioral information related to their psychomotor skills and so forth. And I can tell you some of that is already happening in our region, because we do have some units in our ministries of education, our special needs units, that actually undertake that type of screening of our children before they come in. I would go further to say that for us to really capture these bits of information on our children from very early, it has to be a collaborative endeavor with our other stakeholders, our ministries of health.
Angel Caglin, Curriculum Officer at the Ministry of Education, stated that one of the main objectives of the project is to ensure that not only reading gains are achieved, but students enjoy reading.
But I would say overall that while we consider all of those little factors in reading instruction, we really want to focus on the joy that we want students to experience as they read. We want them to enjoy the act of reading. And that means putting reading in the place where it belongs as we live our language, not just use language for functional purposes. So we want to situate our reading in the context of using language to live, to enjoy life, not just function, but to enjoy it completely. And so as we keep being evidence-based, we may look at new approaches from the balanced approach to, let's say, the science of reading, but the bottom line is we want students to not just be able to read, but to enjoy reading.
The curriculum officer continues to urge parents to become more involved in the literary development of their students.
Very importantly is to establish a connection with the teacher and with the school. Participate in whatever activities that are available at the school, especially in the areas of literacy. That will help you to understand what your child or your children are doing at school. Keeping abreast also of what children are doing at every stage, whether it's every week or every 2 weeks or every month, it helps you to be able to find ways that you can reinforce those concepts that children are learning at school, not through homework, but through activities and experiences around the home that will help the child to reinforce those concepts, whether it's, as the parent mentioned, reading signs, reading posters, reading labels. All of these will help to reinforce. Reading to children and reading with children, these help. Having your child read to you also helps your child to practice his or her reading skills.
The Early Learners Program comes to an end in September 2020. From the Government Information Service, I am Anicia Antoine reporting.
Thank you, Anicia, for that report. And as part of activities marking International Literacy Day 2020, the St. Lucia National Commission made a presentation of $20,000, that's wonderful, to the government of St. Lucia through the Curriculum and Materials Development Unit, CAMDU, of the Ministry of Education, Innovation, Gender Relations and Sustainable Development to fund the development and designing of an implementation plan for the application of the St. Lucia National Language Policy. Funding for this project has been secured under the UNESCO Participation Program request for the 2020-2021 biennium, and is in keeping with UNESCO's efforts at advocating for inclusive education policies and programs. So International Literacy Day is not just about teaching kids to learn to read and write. It's also about comprehension, application. How do we live our language, as well as also taking a look into linguistics as well, the different languages we speak, the Creole mixed with the English as well. So we're definitely looking forward to the rollout of what will become a national language policy for St. Lucia. We continue with this morning's news. I just want to wrap up quickly. World Suicide Prevention Day was observed yesterday, and if you're watching our Morning Brew, we did feature someone who was in the throes of suicidal thoughts, suicidal tendencies, and how she was able to overcome them, Miss Amina Sipal, and she did speak on, it's really a really wonderful comeback story of how she endured these a Great Depression, but coming back and really championing cancer, championing her career, starting a new business. We do encourage you in your spare time to take a listen to her story. We do have a report from the Ministry of Health and Wellness speaking on a Suicide Prevention Day. Health authorities are calling on all members of the society to play a part in suicide prevention. You also know of the 203 hotline that you can call. You can speak to a counselor if you're feeling down and out. Even before you get to the point, the breaking point, you can call somebody so that you can be referred to get some professional help as soon as possible. We have a report from Fernell Neptune. Take a look.
As part of observing World Suicide Prevention Day on September 10th, the Ministry of Health hosted a suicide awareness symposium at the St. Lucia National Mental Wellness Center. The symposium provided an opportunity for mental health professionals to share ideas and knowledge to help achieve the goal of preventing suicidal behavior. Principal Nursing Officer Glenda Sepal says, everyone can make a difference to assist others who have reached the point of wanting to end their lives.
Preventing suicide is often possible, and you are a key player in its prevention. You can make a difference as a member of society, as a child, as a parent, as a friend, as a colleague, or as a neighbor. You can raise awareness about the issue, educate yourself and others about the causes of suicide and warning signs for suicide. Show compassion and care for those who are in distress in your community. Question the stigma associated with suicide, suicidal behavior and mental health problems, and share your own experiences.
Sepal also called for the collaborative efforts of every one of us to prevent suicide.
We must endeavor to develop evidence-based suicide prevention activities that reach those who are struggling in every part of the world. Joining together is critical in preventing suicide. Preventing suicide requires the efforts of many. It takes family, friends, co-workers, community members, educators, religious leaders, healthcare professionals, political officials, and governments. Suicide prevention requires integrative strategies that encompass work at the individual, systems, and community level.
World Suicide Prevention Day is observed under the theme, Working Together to Prevent Suicide. Reporting from the Communications Unit of the Ministry of Health and Wellness, I am Fernell Neptune.
Thank you, Fernell, for that report. And finally, we have Lissa Joseph with our last report. The Project Implementation Unit of the Global Environment Fund, GEF 6 Southeast Coast Project, on September 10th, 2020, concluded a public relations and communications workshop for stakeholders. Take a look.
The government of St. Lucia, noting the vast biodiversity of the southeast coast of the island and the socio-economic benefits that can be derived if the resources are carefully managed, is implementing an integrated ecosystem management project funded by the Global Environment Facility, the GEF. The GEF 6 Southeast Coast Project is designed to enable sustainable economic development of the Southeast Coast by maintaining healthy ecosystems, sustainable livelihoods, and securing global environmental benefits. A key component of the project is public education and participation. The Department of Sustainable Development held a two-day public relations and communications workshop with stakeholders to develop a communication strategy.
In as much as the project was defined a particular way, but who are we trying to reach? What message do we want to get there? And how do we craft the messages in a way that the people will actually want to listen to it? So over the next 2 days, we're working with persons, like I said, from civil society to develop that strategy. It is important to get the input of the people in the communities that you're trying to reach. They know so much more than the technocrats. They know what people listen to. They know the programs. They know what they like. So it is important for us to do that. So that is what it is that we'll be doing, engaging them over the next couple of days.
Facilitator Aline Regis says discussions about ecosystems management, restoration and rehabilitation of sites and sustainable livelihoods, while technical, impact the residents of the Southeast Coast directly.
but I think when you break it down, it is really getting persons to understand what natural resources that you have and how do you best use it to ensure that the future generations can benefit, but that also the people today can benefit without destroying, and so the word sustainable, if we understand what that means, is very, very, very important in the process. So it's really looking at what it is that we have, ensuring that we don't lose more, and what we have lost to try and restore, and ensure that people can actually make a living from the environment.
The Department of Sustainable Development says it is critical that residents are included in order for the communities to take ownership of the project.
We have people who are parts of producer groups, farmers, fishermen, private sector people in the area. So we want to ensure that everybody is able to benefit from the project, and that based on their input into the communication strategy, that we can also reach, not just themselves, but the participants, in the communities. As stakeholders, one of the components of the project is to develop sustainable livelihoods. So we want to ensure that based on activities identified, that the people generally in the communities are able to use the project funds to make use of the opportunities being provided for them.
The workshop was held at the National Skills Development Center in Vieux-Fort. From the Government Information Service, Lisa Joseph reporting.
Fun. Thank you so much for staying with us. This is the Morning Brew, and if you're just joining us, you missed the news, but you're just in time for our special interview this morning. We do have Ms. Drenia Frederick from the Cultural Development Foundation, as well as a featured poet of the National Arts Festival, Outreach, for Voices of the Underground, Episode 2, Ms. Katherine Atkinson. Good morning to you both. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Wonderful. I think I'll start with you, Drenia, okay, because when we saw Sunday night came, you guys did warn us. You guys did tell us this is coming. We're having the virtual format of Outreach, and it turned out to blow everyone away. Many people might have been expecting what we would have seen on stage being converted or just recorded. But I mean, so much more was done. That's why I said earlier, it's Jeff Bezos backing you guys. The production quality, the interaction, the concept is so wonderful, and the hosts are just made for the show. Tell us about the work behind this project.
Well, of course, COVID came and CDF. This is something that we've been wanting to do a long time. It's part of our sort of outreach to the communities. And we said, okay, so we can't have this physically. What can we do? But you don't want to create another virtual show where, okay, by the time you flick your remote, you say, oh, you move on. How can we engage people? And a lot of thought and a little science went into it in terms of how do you create a performance poetry show that does not look like the standard thing where you have poets coming on and performing. After a while, people now have a different sense of attention span because of the digital world that we're living. We listen to a song, we don't listen to it all the way to the end. So we thought about it, and I said, okay, if I'm featuring 6 female poets, and why we chose 6 female poets, because there are questions that, okay, what is the selection process for these 6 poets? Why these 6 poets? The reason is, within our sort of anthology of literature, there has always seemed to be a highlight of the male counterparts. I just throw a few names out there and everybody knows Walcott, Lee, Auger. And you have these women who are writing, and the work is just as formidable. You have new writers as well. And we felt that let's do this first series highlighting 6 dynamic St. Lucian poets, and let's do it spanning several generations. So if you notice, Gina is of that younger ilk bordering on millennia, and then gradually it builds. So you have this span to show that this sort of rich element of literary work done by women in St. Lucia. And that was the thinking behind it. Well, when we got to the part where, how do you string that together? And I get Jessie to watch, and I get somebody's 4-year-old daughter to watch, and I get a millennia to sit there and watch, and somebody in their 40s who's generally not impressed with anything, and someone in their 50s who's the intellectual, somebody who is probably a farmer. How do I get everybody to sit and watch this program? And I thought about it. And you know that concept of, because we live in a digital age, that constant move of a click. So if you notice every segment, it's not too long, it's not too short. It's like that click. You keep moving to the next image, the next image. But it is all connected. It is not dear in your face. It's all sort of subliminal. If you go back and you rethink and you rewatch the episode, you'll see how everything is connected. The show is about poetry. The show is about featuring these women and how all of this, in terms of voices of the underground. People are like, why voices of the underground? I'll tell you why. When we walk around any major place in the world where art and something revolutionary in art, in music, in drama, in theater has developed, it has come out of a sort of an urban context. Roughness of the city. If we look at steel pan, what did that develop? It didn't come from some highfalutin area. So within that sense of Castries, people see Castries as rugged, people are moving around as commerce, but that city has a sound. And it is also the voice of these artists that are coming out of it that create that sense of entertainment. If you walk around Castries, you're thoroughly entertained. That's the most exciting and entertaining place. You swing the corner around by Valmore, you get in front of JQ, there's somebody singing with a tin, and you hear that sound, and you keep walking, and you hear another sound, taxi drivers talking, and you're walking. So all of those sounds, and for me, the poet embodies that, writing about our society, writing about our city, writing about our lives, our issues, and they address every topic, and is that voice. And I think the idea came to me years ago. There was a little house near Caddas Bakery opposite Dealey's, and there were some guys who used to just come there. Nobody paid them to do that, and they would just toast and sing and rap and sing, and they would just go on into the night. And you're walking by, you hear that juxtapose the vans of the Grizzly bus moving, and juxtapose the women sitting, selling things, people moving inside of this constant. So that is the voice of creativity. That is the voice of the poet, bringing to light issues. And sometimes it's anti-establishment. Sometimes it supports what is going on in society. So for me, that, in a sense, is that voice, and that voice of, whatever you want to call it, rebellion. And I'm addressing, people have spoken about, we have these European and American poets that you talk about at the beginning of the series. You know, if this is a St. Lucian thing, but the point is, these women are also female poets who also embody this voice of the underground in terms of their activism, their rebellion, and addressing issues in society. So if we look at the first one, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, you defy your father, you marry someone that he says you should not, and what we didn't say is that her father owned slave plantations in Jamaica, and she wrote an entire book condemning slavery. Then she wrote about child labor in England. During that period, that was a real issue. So then it's that voice coming up and saying, hey, this is wrong. This has to be brought to light. And if you look at Barrett and you sit down, you have to do a little thinking, and you look at Gina. Gina writes about what? The society. She touches on how we are political animals. She touches on, this wearing of this mask that we conceal. That is a wider issue in society. So then you can see the similarity in her and Barrett in terms of bringing to light that sense of writing about the society. Barrett wrote about love, expressing those ideas. So then that sort of subliminal message where you have to sort of connect the dots. It's not the normal program where everything is laid out for you. Yeah. Where I think at some point you have to think, but how is that related to that? And sit and think.
Yeah.
And I think what CDF and we've been enjoying is all of the comments of persons who are excited about it and love it, and all of the comments of persons who say, I don't like that, and I don't like that part.
That's good too.
But they say, I don't like this, I don't like that part, but guess what I say? Tune in next week. And so, analyzing the music, which is St. Lucian music. And we sometimes try to divorce music from poetry, but it is that whole essence of the language, using devices. So we started off with Umpa's Anthem of Dennery. That is a parody. You can't get any better than that. And put up the definition. So now you know, okay, so that's what a parody is. When I hear Umpa's song, oh, that's what he's doing. And they're using that craftiness in the song. And so all of that is related. This whole parody of life, so to speak. So all of that is connected, and then you get to the interview with the poet. Some people say, you should have divided up the interviews into parts and then had the performances. I mean, we're accustomed to seeing that format. Sit and listen to, get to know this person, who she is. You see her on the streets, yeah, you know she's a poet, but how do you accomplish that? What is your daily life like? And really get an insight into their lives. I mean, Katherine almost killed us, but that's okay. On the walk, when we were going to film, I figured, well, it might be some little beach or something she walks to. When I realized I'm going downhill, and when I turn around and I realize,
You have to go back up that hill.
you have to go back up. I'm like, okay. And to understand that she does that almost every morning to get to that creative process, that's fascinating. That's fascinating on two levels, physically and mentally. So the show is designed for everybody, and it's designed for this sort of click. You get a snapshot of everything, even the snippets about the streets of Castries. Why the streets of Castries? I think that we underestimate our city, and somebody said, but that's by the square. That looks so good. Yes. And to sort of gauge in our minds that sometimes you have something and you don't appreciate it, and you don't take care of it. And this is what it is. And the history of the streets. Why is it that named Cadiz Street? Who is that? What significant part of our history does he play? There was a Bayram factory there. I remember as a child, I used to walk through, when you get to town, you take this pungent smell. Okay, who owned that factory? We give you a snippet, not the full history. So you can find, archives is a wonderful place. Find out about that. In terms of the Bayram factory, it was owned by the, at one point, Cox and Company. It has been around for a long time. Why is this? This is a standard St. Lucian product. It does not look like the Bayram bottle from Trinidad, which is plastic. And I know that because I went looking for it, and I picked it up, and I said, but that's not St. Lucia Bayram. And then somebody, I think it was Tyrone, says, no, Drenia, St. Lucia Bayram has a classic bottle. And I walked into M&C and realized, oh, okay, now I understand. I get it. And it has that feel. So all of those things connect to our identity. And we really wanted to highlight the poets and to do programming that is different, and to encourage persons that, you know, besides just doing the regular talk show, we now have to start producing material so that we can watch local material. I mean, everywhere in the Caribbean, persons are producing sitcoms, dramas, series, and CDF is trying to channel that whole industry. We constantly talk about film, we talk about a film commission. This is what we have to do, start the body of work that creates a movement. And what CDF is doing is this outreach to create a movement that persons can see. You don't necessarily have to produce a poetry show in that style, but you can produce things that persons in St. Lucia will enjoy. And I think audiences now, it is great to see yourself on TV, your culture, who you are. And it reminds me of Kendall John's documentary. The cinemas were filled with persons, and it's that understanding of seeing yourself that will lead to national pride, that will lead to honing that sense of identity, appreciation for the environment, appreciation for your country, who you are as a people, and working towards that sort of innovative mind to make things better.
Okay. I think you just answered several questions that I planned to ask you this morning, and that's okay. I want to segue to you, Ms. Atkinson. Katherine, special good morning to you. If you could just tell us a bit about your background. I know you will be featured this coming Sunday in Voices of the Underground, yes. And the pace has been set with Gina and the first production. Tell us a bit about yourself and what you're looking to offer us this coming Sunday.
Well, I wanted, if I could, by way of answering that, just make reference to this whole Castries Underground start. Part of my start in spoken word and performance poetry was on the corner of Bourbon and Brazil Street, where Head Funk first started hosting.
That little cafe there.
Yeah. There was a little cafe. I think it was Janine Billy who encouraged and provided the space. And there was just a street lamp and a little ramp and a stage, and we got up there and we just spat our lyrics, and there was a real energy, a real sense of community in that space. So it seems to me, my poetry doesn't necessarily call upon urban spaces. As a matter of fact, it's a lot more pastoral. Okay. But in terms of my presentation and so on, the energy of Castries, the energy of the people who would gather around, who may not have necessarily be artistically inclined, at least ostensibly, and then just be attracted by these sounds, by these rhythms, and there was an incredible energy there. So I have to say kudos to Head Funk for creating those platforms and that opportunity. So that when you spoke of that, it really resonated with me.
And there was also Grass Street, the garage.
Oh yes, I remember.
And we also, our third episode is on Grass Street.
Nice.
So
thanks for that insight.
It's interesting, and I also want to thank CDF under the leadership of Drenia for this inspired way of both showcasing female talent and also working around the whole coronavirus restrictions and so on. And CDF's worked with me quite a bit because I identify as a sort of multi-genre writer, and they've been so supportive. When I did my play Requiem for a Bad John, that was one of the outreach 2 years ago, 3 years ago. That was the selected play for the festival and so on. So I'm coming to this. The writing that you'll see is a culmination of my dabbling in all kinds of genres, and I suppose poetry is the one that's sort of closest and more natural. For me, it is a form of expression that is immediate, arising out of immediate emotion or response or reaction or observation. It's literally what you can sort of scribble as you're taking that walk or reflecting on, reflecting on love lost or reflecting on triumph or what have you. It's a natural space for me to explore my feelings, and it arises out of feeling. And then what takes it out of feeling and puts it in the realm of art is the return to it and the crafting and so on. And very often, poetry is my first stop in exploration in other genres. So I write short stories, I write screenplays, I write plays, I write some longer form. And very often I come to poetry as my first stop in figuring out where I want to go. And so Requiem for a Bad John, the play, started as a spoken word piece. And I have a long history with Drenia with this, because she actually helped facilitate that poem for one of the Word Alive festivals. And I had observed a news item and been so profoundly affected by it. And the character in that news item was somebody who wanted to figure out, like, why would you behave in this way, what have you. So it started as a poem, and then it morphed into a play.
Nice.
So poetry's always been a part of my process, and not always the end product. But I've really, really enjoyed the spoken word element, which took some of the intimidating features of the printed sort of high literary work out of the way. It has its value, and it certainly is something that I explore. But it was sort of an entree for me.
When did that begin? Tell us about the beginnings. How did you come to rely on poetry?
How did I come to? If you ask I grew up in a print-rich environment. I grew up with parents who read and read to me. I grew up with a grandfather who recited Coleridge and recited poetry. You know, there are people who I can't do it. I'm ashamed to say, but who would stand there and just recite at a family gathering. So that input was always there. I had a family that always encouraged my expression, and my mother will tell you that, like, when I was an angsty teen, she was finding all little scribblings of my feelings posted all over the place in little notebooks, you know.
Get a diary.
It was, I think, the backs of old receipt books and stuff my father brought home, and I've always relied on it.
Okay.
And I grew up in an environment where reading, and I think it's appropriate listening to your International Literacy Day reflections, an environment where literature and reading and writing and all of that were both a retreat from the world, and also a way to open the world and explore. So that's always been a part of my life. So it's always been a natural way to express myself.
Okay, wonderful. What can we expect come this Sunday?
Okay, well, I haven't actually seen this episode, so it's going to be a surprise.
We're coming to you.
But what I do know is, I understand that there was the interview component where I took them through over hill and dale on the East Coast.
Right.
You know, and I thought, well, let them see the environment that inspires me.
Did you have medics in tow?
I don't think they realized. I really don't think they realized what I was. I said, now make sure you wear your hiking shoes, and and there was Tyrone in his dress pants. I don't know. Anyway, so there's the interview component, and then I will be performing 3 pieces.
Okay.
And those are studio-produced pieces.
Nice.
And then, of course, there are the elements that Drenia talked about, the sort of literary allusions found in our cultural forms, and the connection with other poets that have preceded us.
Yeah, and we've connected each poet with a female poet of the past that sort of has that similarity in terms of...
I'm curious to know how you saw me and Dorothy Parker together, please.
I guess it will all unfold on Sunday night, and we will come here for a post-mortem. But tell us about some of the pieces, the titles, the themes that you'll be covering.
So, like I said, I'm really drawn to. I write, I suppose, out of the emotion of the moment, and also out of observation. And because I guess I have a sort of peripatetic sort of morning where I walk the coast and everything. It's always very much the landscape. Okay. So one piece is a suite of poems called Tomas, which are a reflection on the landscape and the experience of Hurricane Tomas.
2010.
Yes. And, oh gosh, was it that long ago?
Yes.
My goodness. And then another piece is also landscape inspired. It is called... I don't know what it's called.
And that's okay.
But it's about sort of the Easter season and the Kauem sort of landscape.
Nice.
And the narrator or the speaker in the poem is cooking her Good Friday meal. And then another piece, which is a little bit more personal, is just a reflection on identity and connection, again, to the landscape and the culture. So I don't know if that's sort of what you were...
It's sufficient. I think we have a teaser for your display or showcase. I think we could go to it now to give persons a greater understanding of what you will be bringing to us this coming Sunday.
Great.
So let's go to that right now. We'll come back to the interview.
Okay. After the betrayal, the quiet pain of disbelief. And in the void, a heavy, wet silence. Everywhere, everything bore the marks of a misused lover.
Voices of the underground coming on the rebound.
None dare break the code of bravado to say what they all know. I lost God, but last night, he came and found me.
That was a really short teaser. But I guess that's what, by definition, it is.
Yes.
Thank you, Drenia, for giving us so much insight into Sunday. But if you could just tell us what this experience has been for you, because last week I was speaking to Gina about the experience it has been working with CDF on this latest project as compared to previous engagements that you might have had with other production companies. What has this particular experience been like?
Well, you know, I went into it a little bit tentatively. Drenia will tell you I'm a little reluctant and a little reticent, believe it or not. And I was just so impressed with the sense of vision, the attention to detail, the real honoring of the work, like a real attempt to honor the work, which felt very special because I guess to some extent, as female writers, I don't want to speak for all the other writers, but there's, for me, a sense of being a little bit underground with my writing and my creative life, and so it was an emerging. So I was really appreciative. I said a little reluctant, but very appreciative of the platform and the honoring of the work of myself and the other poets are being featured.
Okay, Requiem for a Bad John, and your work now, I mean, it speaks volumes, obviously. When will we be getting published? Because you just told me you're not published right now.
Yes.
So talk to me.
Well, do you know, I've submitted, I do have work out in journals and on online platforms and so on.
Okay.
I'm working on a couple of projects, compiling, and in the process of sending out. So hopefully you'll see something out in the near future, but nothing immediate.
Okay. Come back to you in just a moment. Drenia, I'm coming back to you. We're talking the production once again and how it's very much St. Lucian, although you have the snippet in there of the international figures, the female poets. When I listened to the intro, the intro music bed,
yes,
it did sound very much local because you're hearing the words of the women that are in the production. Tell us a bit about who is behind the music bed.
Okay, so I called Barbara Cadet and I said, hey, we would like to use your song from Indigenously Yours, the remake of Tima Mai done by Charles Cadet.
Oh.
So she did a version of that. And she said, great. And I said to her, but you know, it's nice, but I want it to cross the age barrier, you know? I mean, somebody my age would just love it the way it is, but I want younger persons to tag onto it. And I'm like, I said, but I know it's Denry segment, but I'm already featuring Denry segment, but can you like do something for hip-hop beat? And I sent her 2 hip-hop songs, and she promptly told me that, you know, if I'm sending her, I want her to do this, she will not take somebody else's music and create from that. What should be done is we should create from scratch. So I said, okay. I went to her studio, she pulled out that Team of Mine. So that dum 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 dum
Yes.
dum dum. So she pulled that out, and I sat there, and I just sat there in awe. And she pulled that out and built that entire hip hop beat from scratch.
Nice.
I mean, I left there at 2:00 in the morning. I was still in shock. And when she was finished, she said, "Okay, right. So I'm gonna call Malcolm Coote, who's her, what do you call, engineer."
Were you just impersonating Barbara?
Yeah. And I'm like, okay. So I came back the night Malcolm came back, and the two of them sat there drinking coffee and layering this thing. And she said, "Okay, Drenia, so that doesn't resonate with people. You need a voice. I think I'll call Castro." I'm like, what? I can't remember his full name. And at 1:00 in the morning, she calls Castro, and Castro comes to her studio.
Wow.
And I'm like, and he says, "So where are the lyrics?" I said, "Well, okay, well, Voices of the Underground, coming on the rebound, and okay, and boom, he just, and okay." And he just laid that voice down, and he took that voice and just created. And the following day, the engineer came back, and she called me and said, "Drenia!" And I came back, and I was like, okay, wow. And and we tested it out with several persons, and we're like, yeah. And I think what people don't notice is very catchy.
Mm-hmm.
It's there.
Yeah.
It's there. And I'm like, all right. So this is really, the entire process is a creative process, from creating the concept for the show. I mean, I didn't sleep for weeks. It was almost like, and I think the entire staff of CDF really cradled this, right down from our executive director, Temba, Jacques-Claude, Tyrone, Jana, all those in admin, Felicia, Ria, everybody just, for me, it was, like when they say people are just all on the same page and we're working towards one goal. We knew that we wanted to create this product to make a change, a difference, and we just work towards it. And thank you, Barbara, for that intro. And she said, and I added a little sax. I said, okay, so it has a little jazz groove. I said, yes.
Because, you need a little jazz, but it does definitely give the urban theme, some life. You definitely get that impression from the get-go.
All St. Lucian. Some people may have a thing and say, but why don't you use a Caribbean beat, like a little soca beat or something more St. Lucian? This is St. Lucian. This is the creativity of a St. Lucian.
Absolutely.
Coming to work together on this, and it says something about us that, I guess if we were an island with more resources, I think we would reach for the stars. I think we'd reach the moon.
Absolutely. We're running out of time. Just give us a quick plug-in for Sunday.
So Sunday, 7 p.m. on Facebook, CDF's Facebook page, and NTN, 7 p.m. and NTN's YouTube channel, Calabash, and HTS. Okay, I'm looking the wrong way. Yes, HTS 7 p.m. Tune in. I assure you'll be entertained. You would be blogging on Facebook and writing comments and making more comments, and you'll be asking yourself, okay, so next week, the following week, I'm going to tune in to see the next sport. So be prepared to be entertained. Some people might be in a little shock, but hey, it's something to look forward to. See you on Sunday.
Wonderful. Sunday, tune in for the live broadcast. It's pre-recorded, but it's airing live. So you could start your watch parties, to enjoy this. So 30 minutes?
Yes, 30 minutes. It's not too long.
Okay, wonderful, perfect. And before we go, Katherine, if you could just give us a sample of what, the voice that is Katherine Atkinson.
So
Sunday.
Just as a prelude, this is not something that's included in the performance.
We would never ask you to do that.
So this is just a scribbling, a sort of a fusion of the heart.
Inspire us.
It's called Sunday Drive. Hours pass like miles, our talk undulating like the landscape. An arresting vista demands we slow. I steal a kiss, and the current hums long after your hands return to the wheel I wish were me. We cross into the jolting terrain. Where are we going? You answer as though I were talking about the road. We reach a tranquil bay, dive in. You wrap me in salt-stained arms. My cheek searches and finds a matching tumult in your chest. I know nothing but the waterproof seal of our bodies, the caress of sun on my upturned face.
Wonderful.
Wow.
Wonderful. Katherine Atkinson, thank you for that poem on your West Coast escapade. Thank you so much. It really took me there, you know.
Yeah,
it really
I
felt
could
good.
see that.
And I'm definitely looking forward to hearing from you on Sunday. Thank you so much, and congratulations on this opportunity. We do hope to hear of bigger and better things from you later on.
Thank you. Thanks
Wonderful.
so much.
It's all the time we have for now for this morning's brew. Thank you, Drenia, as well, for sitting in with us.
Thank you for having
You
us.
gave us a thesis in the beginning with everything that happened in the last episode, and I really appreciate that, you know, giving persons a look back on what they can look forward to for Outreach. So I definitely appreciate
And we
that.
appreciate all the comments.
Yeah, good, bad, all publicity is good publicity. Yeah. Anyway, we're done for this morning. Thank you so much for watching. This has been another episode of the Morning Brew. Do enjoy your weekend. We hope it's safe. Remember, we're still under the emergency orders. We're still under a state of emergency. Do observe the protocols. Wear the mask. Use the hand sanitizer. Wash your hands. Observe the 6-foot distance when you're going out, rushing to the supermarket, and just going out, even to the beach. Take note of things. So while you're enjoying, ensure that you adhere to the protocols. My name is Jessie Leon, signing off for now. Do stay tuned to this station for more programming from the government of St. Lucia. Toodles, TGIF.